There are many games out there that could be considered classics. There are household names for Nintendo, such as Mario, The Legend of Zelda, Donkey Kong, Metroid, Kirby, Pokemon, and more recent titles like Splatoon, and many more. However, one that I don't hear a lot of people talking about is the Mother series, or the Earthbound series, whichever one fits better according to you. But I personally like to call it the Mother series. I played Earthbound for the first time in 2017 after a friend ended up recommending it to me, and to say I got addicted to this franchise is quite possibly one of the biggest understatements of the 2010s. However, the obsession died out in late 2023, and Pikmin, of all things, replaced that insane hyperfixation. But the Mother series has become arguably one of my most beloved franchises that I've ever been introduced to. Arguably one of my favorite franchises that I've ever discovered in gaming, period. So that begs the question. Why hasn't this series been more celebrated? Does it deserve more love? Or is it simply a cult classic series that is doomed to be remembered as one of Nintendo's lesser franchises? Well, you all know the drill at this point. Let's find out. The game starts with a typical character naming screen. This is where we see the main four characters for the first time. Ness, Paula, Jeff, and Poo! Crap! Ugh, whatever! You're introduced to the main four characters here in this segment. You also get to name your dog, which by default is named King. Pick your favorite food, which by default is steak. Which, hey, not a bad choice, steak is freaking amazing. And you also get to pick your favorite thing, which by default is rockin'. Rock and roll? I don't know. Anyway, after that screen, we can finally get on into the story, at long last. So, let's jump on into this! The year is 1990X, in the small town of Onnit in Eagleland. It's late at night. Ness is peacefully sleeping, probably dreaming about baseball and steak, when out of freaking nowhere there's an explosion, or at least the ground shakes and it sounds like an explosion. This explosion has most likely woken up the entire flippin' neighborhood. And after Ness checks on his sister Tracy and his mother and changes out of his pajamas, he quickly runs off to investigate what the explosion was. After talking to some of the police officers and walking a little bit more, Ness encounters his next door neighbor and friend, Pokey Minch. Or Porky. To be honest, I have no idea which one it is, but for this video, I am going to be calling him Pokey. Anyway, Pokey tells Ness to stop bothering the cops and go home, and that he would fill in Ness the next morning. Dude, you're also literally bothering the cops! Anyway, Ness returns home, gets back into his pajamas, and goes back to bed. Not too long later, Ness and his family are woken up again by a loud knocking on their door. It turns out to be none other than Pokey Minch. Again! But this time, Pokey is in a panic. After the police left the explosion site to deal with the sharks, aka the local gang of ruffians causing trouble around town, after they left, Pokey noticed that his little brother Picky, who went with him to the explosion meteor site, was missing. Pokey blames the cops as it most certainly wasn't his fault. Sure, buddy. Ness, being the good kid that he is, decides to go help Pokey locate his little brother and takes the family dog King along as well. I guess as backup. But before Ness can leave, he gets a phone call from his father with some rather convenient timing, if I may add. Ness's dad encourages him to never give up and then hangs up. Which is whack. That is one of the oddest scripted things I've ever seen in an RPG. But anyway, enough staying around, we got a kid to save! After fighting some crows and wandering back to the meteorite site, King decides that this is way too scary for him and decides to just completely dip on Pokey and Ness and charge back to the house at Mach 11. But not too long later, Ness and Pokey end up finding Picky, who was napping behind a tree, and reveals that he was looking for his older brother and that Pokey got scared and ran away. So much for the cops being responsible, eh, Pokey? Anyway, this is where Buzz comes into play after hearing some buzzing. Buzz Buzz is a bug from 10 years in the future. It explains the legend of 3 boys and 1 girl destined to defeat a nasty evil bum named Gygus. Gygus? I have no idea how to pronounce his name, so I'm just gonna go with the popular one and say Gygus. Sorry if I'm wrong, I genuinely have no idea how to pronounce it. Back to the story. Buzz Buzz informs Ness that he is indeed one of the boys who will defeat Gygus, but first, we gotta take Pokey and Picky back home to their no doubt worried sick parents. On the way back, a Starman appears, from 10 years in the future, just like Buzz Buzz. However, this guy doesn't look like he's dropping by for a social visit. Nope, this dude is here to kill Buzz Buzz, so we gotta beat the crap out of him. Thankfully with Buzz Buzz over here, this is just a tutorial boss fight and it teaches you a little bit about PSI, which we'll get more into in a bit. Anyway, after getting Pokey and Picky back home to their, assholes for parents, Miss Mitch decides to one-hit KO Buzz Buzz and Ness listens to Buzz Buzz's dying monologue about finding 8 so-called sanctuary locations and gives Ness the sound story before he passes away on the floor of the Minch's house. And that's when the journey for Ness truly begins. Now, the gameplay in Earthbound is certainly something. There are a bunch of things you gotta do in this game. Save a girl from a cult that is absolutely obsessed with blue, fight some rabid animals, eat burgers out of a trash can, fight a giant sea monster, fight a gang, smash people's heads in with a baseball bat. Wait, whoa, hold the phone! Yeah, stuff like this makes me miss seeing the 90s Nintendo because they said and did some stuff in this game. And I love it. I love it so much. I wish we could see some of the silliness in today's games, but then again, I don't think that would pass the parent check, unfortunately. But basically, this game is run around, beat up some enemies, level up a few times, and fight a bunch of stuff, and fight a boss, and then go on to the next area. That's basically what Earthbound is, but it's pretty enjoyable because of the stuff you have to do, and side quests. Those are always fun. Long, but fun. One thing that instantly jumps out to me is the feeling I get whenever I'm in certain areas. Okay, most of them. These areas for a pixelated game are really, really, really pretty. It makes me smile whenever I see such amazing effort put into backgrounds like this. Saturn Valley was especially fun to traverse with all the Mr. Saturns around, and they're adorable as heck, by the way. Dalum, Dalum? I don't know if I'm saying that one right either, but it feels very ancient and very important. Very suitable for poop. Crap! Poo! I gotta stop doing that. It's very suitable for Pooh, being the prince, and it's very pretty. Easily a top tier location in this game. And last but not least, Moonside. Oh my flipping gosh, Moonside. This thing is an amazing product of everything is not as it seems. The fact that all of this is just a hallucination caused by the evil Manny Manny statue and all the dangers around you aren't real, but very, very real at the same time. I mean, come on! It's genuinely one of, if not my favorite parts of this entire freaking game. That and also getting to fight the statue was a lot of fun. Also, can we give some credit where credit is due? The fact that the backgrounds give you this feeling and the environment manages to give you this feeling with the limited graphics of the 90s, that's just amazing if you ask me. These areas were actually some of the backgrounds that inspired me to learn how to draw backgrounds, something I'm still working on perfecting to this day. These areas are some of the prettiest and creative that I've seen on the SNES, and maybe even in the earlier days of gaming in general. Sure, it's not Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario RPG, Yoshi's Island, or Legend of Zelda level, but it's still super, super pretty regardless. Have they aged well? In terms of pixelated art terms, not too badly. But in general gaming terms, unfortunately, they didn't age too well. But hey, they're still really pretty, like I said before. Another thing that makes Earthbound so magical is its undeniable musical charm. This game's music is working its magic on your ears from the moment you boot up the game and go to the character naming screen. The way that this music manages to make you feel so upbeat, on edge, mad, or even sad is just something I don't see too often anymore in video games, which is honestly something that really needs to be brought back. Please, Nintendo. Anyway, you can hear so many different kinds of music in this game's soundtrack, it's not even funny at this point. You can even hear freaking salsa in this game, which for a game in the 90s, this was a very, 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 very bold musical choice. Also, a cool fact here, apparently whoever made Earthbound's music were experimenting with sampling, which wasn't a huge thing at the time, and I'm pretty glad that Earthbound threw the gates wide open with that. Well, not wide open, they cracked it open at best, but it's still pretty cool. I would say that my favorite soundtracks in this game are Apple Kid's theme, Sunrise and On It, Buy Something Will Ya?, Paula's theme, Runway 5 The Daily Show, Battle Against a Weird Opponent, and Snowman. Weird choices, I know, but at the same time, I love these tracks a lot and occasionally listen to these bad boys in my free time. This music was really, really ambitious for its time and was seen as unconventional by most, which is wacky to think about nowadays, but still really cool how the music came to be. Overall, though, easily one of my favorite video game OSTs to listen to, and definitely one of the most interesting and versatile. Along with the beautiful backgrounds and music, another thing that I will instantly praise the hell out of this game for is that this game is just funny as all get out. No joking here. This game is hilarious at some point, especially Fuzzy Pickles, which has become one of, if not the most iconic lines in the entire freaking franchise. Arguably, they're with the most iconic ones out there. But this one to me is the most iconic and well known. There were some lines in this game that just made me bust out laughing for no freaking reason. Like Picky straight up exposing Pokey like this was a high school drama, Fuzzy Pickles coming out of freaking nowhere, and the sharks. Like, literally, the shark's whole freaking presence is just a freaking funny laughing stock. However, if I named all the funny moments in Earthbound, we'd be here for hours. But those three in particular were just really funny to me and they stood out the most. I don't know why, probably because I laugh at literally anything and almost everything. But this game's humor isn't like laugh fest funny. It's more quirky than anything, but still funny nonetheless. Now, has this humor aged perfectly like fine wine? Nope! Then again, not a lot of games that have pretty dated humor like Earthbound do. But that doesn't make it all that bad or cringe or whatever you want to call it. This game is so out of pocket and it doesn't bore you one bit with filler dialogue that has become a common occurrence within the gaming sphere nowadays. Also, yes, this is one of those games where you have to talk to literally almost everybody to trigger the next part of the story. Mainly because there aren't many clues of who you gotta talk to next in the game, so just run amok talking to everybody and hope something happens. Maybe you'll get a funny one-liner out of it. One thing I will say that makes me very happy whilst playing this game is that this game is completely original and isn't just a ripoff of its predecessor, Earthbound Beginnings, which is another game I want to cover at some point next year. Or maybe the year after that, I don't know. This game takes inspiration from Earthbound Beginnings, then blossoms it into a very enjoyable, lovable, and fun game. Just make sure you have a bit of time to invest in this game before you play. Trust me. Most of this game, you will be grinding or screaming at the bosses. Trust me, these bosses are absolutely brutal at times. I especially screamed my head off at the Titanic Ant. This dude is so damn hard for an early boss. I don't remember the exact amount of times that I died, but it was certainly a lot because of this dude's insanely stupid damage output. It's also very, very early in the game, which means you have Ness and Ness alone to fight this thing. The damage is high and pretty damn relentless. The worst part, burgers can only heal up your HP so much before you end up running out. But but the award of not having to fight the current menace on your plate, in my opinion, is well worth the risky and rage-baiting battle, no matter how tough it gets. No matter how many times I die, even when I think some of it is utter bullcrap. Another thing real quick, since we talked a little bit about Earthbound Beginnings, one major thing that Earthbound changed was the PSI, mostly for the better. Earthbound Beginnings PSI was more so just an experimental thing, but here in Earthbound, Nintendo definitely corrected and changed it. Number one change being Earthbound removed PSI block, PK4D slip, shield off, and darkness. Which, fair! Those abilities kinda broke Earthbound Beginnings a little bit. Earthbound changed up the PSI shield ability a little bit too. While it didn't take it off entirely, it just changed a bit. Now here's the change. You have to pick which shield you want to use, a shield for PSI or a shield for physical attacks. Whereas in Earthbound Beginnings, you didn't have to worry about that because the shield would kind of cover both of those. So that really sucked! I was pretty damn bummed that they nerfed that, but other than that, the PSI was basically the same as before in Beginnings, except way more balanced and way better, in my opinion. Now, as much as I love this game, it most definitely has some issues, starting with the combat system. I wasn't too aware of how Earthbound's combat system worked when I first played this game, but I found out pretty quickly just how brutal this game's combat can be. The game's combat system isn't the most, polished? I think that's the word I'm looking for here. This game's combat is the equivalent of rolling the dice and just praying to goodness gracious you get a good roll. I say that mainly because of something I like to call the rolling HP bar, but there are some things I do want to talk about a bit. Earthbound's combat system to me is, kind of a nothing burger. It just doesn't feel like the most memorable part of the game to me, mainly because I am not the biggest fan of grinding in video games, especially in Earthbound. Now here's the problem with that. I would say about 65 to 70% of Earthbound's gaming experience is grinding. I'm not even kidding. The battles just feel so randomly generated. The character AI isn't the brightest here, but then again, we're gonna cut Earthbound some slack here. This was the 90s. They weren't gonna be the brightest crayons in the Crayola box. Now, that alone can be a bit annoying, but what makes this worse is that if you get stuck in a healing loop of just healing here and attacking here and there, healing there and attacking healing there, you're gonna drain your PSI very, very quickly, and then you're screwed. Another small complaint I have is that the ball rockets can really break the game, mainly because they are overpowered as hell, but they can also get you out of a tight spot. So that's just a minor complaint. Absolutely not the worst thing I've encountered in this game, but still a complaint nonetheless. The next complaint is more so of a modern gaming problem. The inventory items tend to pile up, if you will. Yeah, back in the 90s, inventory stacking wasn't really a thing, but it did not evolve too well in this case, mainly because since inventory stacking became a huge thing in the 1997 RPG Diablo, Earthbound was released in 1995, 2 years beforehand. Inventory stacking wasn't on their radar during Earthbound's production, and by their radar, I mean Nintendo's radar. So that one is totally fine, just a perk of being a game released before the late 90s and early 2000s, I guess. Then again, this definitely isn't the biggest problem in Earthbound, or even remotely a big one at all. I'm pretty positive this was just a me problem because I grew up in the era of inventory stacking. Thanks, Minecraft! Another thing that really made me grind my teeth was the damn difficulty spike. I mentioned it before when talking about the Titanic ant, but another one that I want to talk about other than Gygus that made me grind my teeth was the Carbon/Diamond Dog. People often refer to this dog as the Hound from Hell, and that is a name that I think this canine earned from decades of torturing players. Now, the Carbon Dog isn't too terrible, but when this thing transforms into the Diamond Dog, that's when you start to beg and cry out for mercy. If you're not careful, this mangy mutt can one-shot a party member, which is just so dangerous. Sure, you have the chance to revive, but it's still mad scary at times fighting this thing. That was the common thing I'd heard as well. The difficulty spike is just unbearable sometimes, with how much enemies respawn, how powerful a lot of these enemies can be for just no reason. This game also completely punishes you for not grinding. Think you're just gonna waltz through this game with no worries for the rest of your days? Nope! Here come the scalding sentient coffee cups to send you to a caffeinated death. The worst thing is, you can spend actual days, I'm not kidding, actual, literal days trying to get up to a level that would make dealing with enemies and bosses somewhat more tolerable. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was still a 90s thing, but it's still pretty infuriating nonetheless. Anyway, now this next one I'm 100% sure is a me problem. I'm absolutely sure of that because I haven't really seen anyone talk about this. I got lost in this game incredibly easily. One thing this game doesn't do too well is giving you directions. Then again, this was a 90s RPG where you had to run amok and pray to gosh that you just found your way around the place. But then again, we're in the year 2025 and something called the internet made this a non-problem because we can just Google, how the heck do I get out on it? And just boogie along with my day. But because I challenged myself to not use Google or any helping hands at all, I was just stuck there for a while. I'm not even joking. I wish I was. I was so relieved when I finally ended up getting past the first area. But that was the exact moment that I knew for a fact, 100%, I was in trouble. But I eventually got the hang of it, after much trial and error. But yeah, other than those main complaints that I had a few more, but honestly, they're not that big a deal. I don't think that this game is the absolute worst. Would I say this game is perfect? Absolutely not. Would I say that I hate this game? Again, absolutely not. Would I say this game has a few problems that could easily be fixed with a remaster or a remake? Hell yeah! I would deep down love a remaster of Earthbound. Do I see it happening? Sadly, no. I think that the last time Earthbound series has even been remotely in the gaming sphere was when Earthbound Beginnings was put on Nintendo Switch Online. That was back in 2022, 3 flippin' years ago. Then again, at least it's not, you know, stuck in Japan. Sorry, Mother 3. We'll get you to the US one day, hopefully. But yeah, this game definitely forged a love that I have for Earthbound and the entire Mother series as a whole. I do love this game, but at the same time, I'm willing to be one of the first to agree that this video game, like many others, definitely has its own set of flaws. Do these flaws make it annoying? Oh, absolutely, it definitely can. Does it make it unplayable? Hell no! You can easily play this game and have a good time if you explore your options. But for me personally, I still love this game, even though I've beaten it way too many times. It's still a game that will forever shape an era for me, and I love it a lot. Thanks, Earthbound, for introducing me to one of my favorite hyperfixations ever. And with that, we're at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching me ramble about Earthbound with no sense at all for, oh my gosh, over 24 minutes. Also, huge shout out to my thumbnail artist, Lucas, and yeah, I can't wait to see you all in 2026. Take care, guys. Bye-bye!